Hey guys, John V here again from PhoneArena. You're watching our in-depth video review of the HP TouchPad, the very first webOS 3.0 powered tablet on the market. We first saw this guy back in February at HP's event, and it's finally available here in the US market. $500 for the 16GB Wi-Fi only version, $600 for the 32GB one. Down the road, we'll probably expect to see some different variants of the tablet in 3G or cellular connectivity form, but right now it's only available as a Wi-Fi option. Now this comes after the iPad 2 and of course all the other Android 3.0 honeycomb tablets we see in the market, like the Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1, but it's a relatively new player sporting the popular webOS experience, which is pretty neat when it comes to multitasking and some notifications aspects, but we'll see how it contends in this already crowded space. First up, let's talk about the design of the HP TouchPad, and the first thing that it reminds us of is an iPhone 3G or 3GS, just because there are some similarities with its choice of materials and the placement of the buttons. Like you have the volume rocker here, you have also the physical button right there, but nothing really too fantastic with its looks. It sports a conventional approach. It's constructed out of this black glossy plastic, which just like the Palm Pre, the original one, it does attract a lot of fingerprints, and the only time it's ever clean is out of the box for the very first time, because after that, it's a magnet for smudges and dirt and debris. Very difficult to remove too. It comes with a cleaning cloth. It's rounded towards the back, which is comfortable to the hold. There is a little bit more weight to this guy here, especially for a 9.7-inch tablet, a little bit heavier than the iPad 2. Build-wise, it's decent construction, but overall, its looks is pretty much straightforward. The HP TouchPad features a 9.7-inch IPS display with an aspect ratio of 4:3, just like the iPad 2, and at the same time has the same resolution at 1024 by 768 pixels. So as far as clarity and detail, that's a good job. You could tell even with some of the tinier text on screen here, it's still visible, easy to make out. Pretty good sharpness to them as well. Color production is definitely on the natural side. Doesn't seem to be overly saturated, and it presents itself with a good tone. Although its brightness output, it's not the best. It's a little bit on the dim side compared to some of the competition. Even at its maximum setting, we still had a hard time viewing it outside in outdoor conditions with the sun present. Viewing angles are pretty good, so colorists retain their look, and overall, it's a nice looking display to tell you the truth. When you hold it in portrait, you have a physical home button beneath the display. It's kind of flush, but still has a good tactile response when you press it down. It also acts as the LED notification system, so if you're getting a message or an email, it'll light up. When you press it, though, it brings you back to the general view and brings up the launcher bar. Meanwhile, on the opposite edge on the top side, you have a front-facing 1.3 megapixel camera only used for video chat. You have the light sensor right here in the top right, so you gotta be careful not to cover it. Unfortunately, though, it lacks a rear-facing camera for pictures or videos. The HP TouchPad features stereo support thanks to its left and right speakers, which is placed on the bottom edge when you hold it in landscape. Well, on the bottom side of the tablet, you have the micro USB port for charging and data connectivity. You have to use the wall charger in order to charge it up, because if you connect it to a USB port in a computer, you could only sync and transfer stuff. The tablet's volume rocker is located on the right edge of the tablet, has a very good prominent and responsive feel. Also, you have this cutout here. When you push it down, it gives you access to its serial information. We suspect with future versions of the tablet, this is where the SIM card slot will probably go. And finally, there's nothing in the back. You just have the casing with the HP logo right there. It's kind of hollow. There's no cameras we mentioned, so you can't take photos or videos with the touchpad. On top of that, the battery, you can't easily remove it, so you're going to have to send it in to get it replaced. Even though we're not impressed with the HP TouchPad's design, we're more interested with the webOS 3.0 experience. And of course, it's powered by a dual-core 1.2 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon APQ 8060 processor, so it does meet up the expectations set by its contemporaries. But as far as just performance with everyday usage, we just find it less convincing, just because it doesn't quite come off as being a workhorse. In fact, for basic functions such as like kinetic scrolling or moving through a listing, for example here at the photo and video library, sometimes there's a jerkiness with its operation, and sometimes there is also a delay. So it just kind of shows the type of frustrations that we have with the platform in general. Of course, it's more prevalent when you have multiple programs loaded up, and doesn't seem as responsive or fluid looking compared to the HP VR 4G, which we checked out recently. Here's the web browser. You could tell too with the kinetic scrolling. It looks pretty smooth, but not as fluid compared to things like the iOS platform with the iPad 2 or the QNX-based platform with the Playbook. But nonetheless, it's still an acceptable experience. You just got to manage what you have opened. So if you used a webOS smartphone before this, you'll easily fit at home with the HP TouchPad's webOS 3.0 experience because honestly, it just builds upon the foundation set by Palm's mobile platform, and it just supersizes it to take advantage of the tablet space. What's new though is the top here, the status bar. At the top right, when you're in any application, it's always there. You have quick access to things like the time, date, battery. You can change the brightness setting and also connectivity options. On top of that is the notifications area too, so if you have an email message or something else, it'll pop up there, as well as the music player when you minimize the app. And depending on the application, the menu will change accordingly here. You could tell. Just nice having access to that. You also have the just type functionality here. You could just basically type whatever you want, and it automatically will start looking it up for you, and it gives you different suggestions such as Google search. You could search using Maps, Wikipedia, Twitter, a bunch of different functionality, and just goes to show the usefulness of Synergy as a whole. At the bottom here, you have the launcher, which has some quick access to some icons and applications. You have things like the web browser, you have the email, calendar, messages, and the photos and videos viewer. You could change or rearrange them to any way you want. The main menu is laid out in your typical grid-like fashion, and it's categorized by apps, downloads, favorites, and settings. And again, you could rearrange them to whatever you like. In terms of just personalization, still kind of lacking in that area, just because the only thing that you have the ability to change is the wallpaper. That's about it. Nothing else drastic about it. All in all, though, the webOS 3.0 experience is pretty nice. You have all the multitasking aspects. It's definitely great in that regard, just because you could easily do some swipe gestures up like that and easily switch between the applications. You have things like the stack view, which organizes your apps on top of one another just for a better organization, and you quickly close that application just by swiping them up like that. It's definitely nice, as we mentioned, but all in all, it's not quite of a big departure versus the webOS experience that we currently see. Just like other webOS smartphones, you have the messaging application, which is your centralized hub for all your instant messaging needs. It has support for Skype, Yahoo Messenger, AIM, and also Google Talk. And down the road, it'll probably integrate SMS with different versions of the touchpad. As far as the on-screen keyboard is concerned, it's pretty spacious with its layout. You can tell here. We like the fact that you have a whole dedicated row here for numbers. The only thing is, if you want to put in some additional characters, like for example the and here, when you press it down, it just presents you two different options. It just doesn't automatically give it to you, so it's a little bit more work. You have the secondary function keys as well, with some emoticons at your disposal. As far as the experience though, at times it is fairly responsive, but then others, especially with web browsing, when you're trying to input something into a text box, sometimes there is a delay and kind of slows down. All in all, it's pretty decent. And you also have the portrait style keyboard, which we'll show you here real quick. Again, a little bit smaller, but it's still pretty easy to use. At a quick glance, the email client is pretty much similar in its looks when compared to a webOS smartphone, but we like how HP improves upon the experience just because they utilize this 3-panel view both in landscape and even portrait, though it is a little bit skinny and hard to make out in portrait. So on the left side here, you have your different inboxes for different accounts. You have a universal inbox. It shows you the contents of all that stuff, and on the right-hand side is where you get the bulk of the email, the actual content itself. And you can see with these panel buttons in the bottom right here, you could actually move them accordingly. So if you wanted to swipe over to a spot, so you have a 2-panel view, you have that availability. So if you want just a full view, you have that as well. And it's pretty nice just because it's very easy and it's organized. And on top of that, the setup is pretty simple with the HP webOS profile. Just put your username and password and automatically will set up. And of course, in some instances, you might require some additional pieces of information, but we definitely like what HP has done with the email client. As I mentioned already, the HP TouchPad integrates Skype, so if you have an account, you could actually use the phone and video calls application to place either a phone call via Skype or even a video chat on there as well. The web browsing experience is more than acceptable to our taste with the HP TouchPad just because it has Flash support, and overall it's a pretty decent experience. It does take a little bit longer time to load up complex web pages like ours, but that could be attributed to the Flash content being loaded in the background. As far as the navigational experience, it's pretty responsive, but every now and then you notice a hiccup. Sometimes there's a little bit of delay as far as zooming in with pinch gestures, and kinetic scrolling can be at times jerky. It has Flash support, as we said, to give you that true desktop-like experience, so you have the ability to interact with different content. Again, it might not be the fastest out there, but still more than acceptable. And overall, we're pretty happy with the web browsing experience. When it comes to viewing and playing multimedia content, you can actually access it through the Photos and Videos application from the app panel or from the launcher bar. You have this familiar two-panel layout again. Left-hand side shows your libraries and albums, and the right-hand side shows you the content. You can move it over to actually get a better view of it all. And again, we see synergies present just because it automatically will aggregate stuff from your Facebook account as well. When you make a selection with a specific album, you can view the content in there, so the photos. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't offer the sharing functionalities that you see with Honeycomb, just because the only thing you have access to is just sharing it via email. You can't share it with your social networking accounts, and there are no editing features, but you can print it out. When it comes to playing high-definition videos with the HP TouchPad, for the most part, it does an okay job, but except for 1080p videos, strangely, it's kind of strange with its playback. Like the one we have here is encoded in MPEG-4, 1920 by 1080 resolution. Of course, the display is beautiful. It displays a good amount of detail, and of course, colors are nice and beautiful, but it's a little bit choppy with its playback. You tell it kind of stutters at different intervals, and the audio is not in sync. Luckily, those 720p videos work a lot better, so you probably want to stick with that. With its music player, HP goes in with a conventional approach with its presentation, so nothing really eye-catching or fancy with it. It utilizes the familiar two-panel layout, the left-hand side being the library and the right-hand side being the songs. You have your controls at the bottom here. You have this alternative way of browsing your songs by pressing the bottom button right here on the right-hand side. And of course, you could easily swipe between any of them. You could access the mini player when you're running a different application. You just minimize it, and of course, in the status bar, you have the mini player on board. But unfortunately, there is no mini player given to you when you're at the lock screen, so you got to unlock the tablet to gain access to it. As far as the audio quality is concerned, it's pretty decent, not the strongest out there. It has some neutral tones, which makes it pretty good to the ears. One of the things that we're actually surprised about the touchpad is the fact that there are quite a few touchpad optimized apps available in the HP app catalog right from the start here, and we'll quickly show you some of them. This is the app catalog application, so you have things like featured, paid, and even free ones. You could categorize it to anyone you want. We'll quickly show you some of them here. For example, you have Groupon, which takes advantage, of course, of the display here. You have the three-panel layout again. You can move it around to any orientation you'd like, so you have better visibility of a specific item. And again, just shows you the optimization it has to offer. Other things, like we'll show you Angry Birds here. We have two versions. We have one for webOS smartphones that you could play, but you could tell it just basically supersizes the experience, just maximizes to fit the entire layout of the display. It looks pixelated because, of course, it's developed for smartphones. But on the other hand, you have the Angry Birds HD game, which is made for the tablet experience here, and you can tell it's a little bit more fluid and gracious looking with its presentation. But then again, you have other applications like Pandora here, which will only load up in a portrait orientation. I'll quickly show you this here, and emulates basically in a webOS smartphone. You have also the gesture area in here too, which is pretty nice, but it doesn't really maximize or anything. It just gives you the layout like what you'd expect on a regular smartphone. But all in all, so far there are quite a few there's quite a few different applications you could download that really presents itself as a great experience on the touchpad. And overall, we're happy to see that the developers are on board right from the start and giving the touchpad a good amount of decent applications. Battery life with the HP TouchPad is pretty good, just because it falls in line with the other competition out there. In normal everyday usage, we managed to get a good one-day use out of it, mostly using it for web browsing, apps, and watching videos, with still a good amount of battery life in its capacity. As far as our testing goes, we played a movie continuously for 8.5 hours with the brightness set to its medium setting, volume set to its maximum, and 8.5 hours is pretty much in line with other tablets out there. we really want to like the HP TouchPad, and honestly, we really do. But it's very hard for us to accept it wholeheartedly, just because there are some things about it that aren't quite up to par from what we want to see on a tablet. First of all, you got to think about pricing, because honestly, that's one of the driving forces for any tablet out there. At $500 for the 16GB Wi-Fi version, it puts it in line with the iPad 2 and also the Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1, but honestly, it's not the best looking out of the three, of course, and it doesn't feel as solidly built, and of course it's larger too, thicker, and heavier. So right off the bat there, you notice that. But at the same time, it's kind of missing a certain feature, which is the ability to take photos and videos, something that's lacking on the HP TouchPad and that's offered by the competition. So already it's handicapped in that aspect. But not everyone's going to be concerned about taking photos and videos with the tablet, and they're going to be primarily concerned with the platform experience. And we have to say webOS 3.0 is definitely a nice one, although it doesn't drastically differentiate itself enough from the smartphone experience. And in all honesty, it's basically like a Palm Pre experience, to tell you the truth, just because so many similarities between the two platforms. Although with certain apps it does take advantage of the display, but at its core, the foundations, it's pretty much ideal. It's the same thing. It excels in the multitasking aspects, as we mentioned, great with the cards view and also the notifications panel, but it's marred by some performance issues, some bugs or something in the background, just because we notice at times just a general slowdown with its operation. Sometimes apps just take a long time to load up, and of course for simple functions like navigation or connect scrolling, it's not as fluid looking as we'd like to see, especially with a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor. So hopefully down the road we see HP address those issues with future updates, but for right now, it's an okay offering, not the best out there. You're better spending that $500 on other tablets right now. So if you'd like to learn more about the HP TouchPad, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. Thanks for watching, guys.